Most people spend 4 hours in Florence and see exactly one Michelangelo work. There are 11 within walking distance of where they're standing. And the same is true across Rome and Milan. The most famous works get the lines. The rest sit in churches with no crowds, in chapels most visitors never enter, and in rooms that rarely appear on any itinerary. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where to find 10 of them. Ready? Let's roll. Number 10. The Risen Christ, Santa Maria sopra Minerva, Rome. Inside Rome's only Gothic church, standing beside the altar, is a marble figure of the risen Christ that most visitors never stop for. Here is what most people never learn. What you are looking at is not entirely what Michelangelo made. The bronze drapery was added by the church afterward, without his approval. His original conception was a standing nude, triumphant and physically authoritative. Not sacrifice, not grief, composure. This wasn't even the first version. He abandoned an earlier attempt when a flaw appeared in the marble, handed the block to an assistant, and started over. Layers of intervention on top of the original idea, and still powerful enough to stop you if you know what you're looking at. Santa Maria sopra Minerva sits directly behind the Pantheon. Most people inside are looking at Fra Angelico's tomb or the Carafa Chapel frescoes. The Michelangelo is right beside the altar, and it almost never has a crowd in front of it. Number 9. The Unfinished Slaves, Accademia Gallery, Florence. On both sides of the corridor leading to the David stand, 4 figures twisting out of raw stone, shoulders and torsos fully realized, legs and faces dissolving back into the block. Almost every visitor moves straight past them. The slaves were carved for the tomb of Pope Julius II and never finished, and the incompleteness is not a flaw. It is the subject. Michelangelo described his process as liberating the form already inside the marble. These 4 sculptures make that idea literal. Then you walk 30 more meters and reach the David, finished to the last detail. The slaves show you the struggle. The David shows you the resolution. Most people only get one of those experiences. Both are in the same building. Number 8. The Bacchus, Bargello Museum, Florence. Michelangelo was 21 when he finished this, and the man who commissioned it refused to keep it. This is not a dignified god. He sways. His eyes are glazed. The cup he raises is tilted at the angle of someone who has already had too much. Michelangelo carved a drunk, physically and morally unstable, in a way that had no precedent in Renaissance sculpture. This was his first major freestanding sculpture, carved before the Vatican Pieta, before the David, before any of the work that made him famous. Move around it slowly and the swaying quality shifts depending on where you stand. He built the unsteadiness into the stone itself. That a 21-year-old thought to do that and pulled it off is the reason this sculpture still stops people 5 centuries later. Number 7. The Battle of the Centaurs, Casa Buonarroti, Florence. Michelangelo was around 17 when he carved this, living inside the Medici household with access to the greatest art collection in Florence. Bodies press and overlap across the entire stone, limbs tangling, figures half emerged and half submerged, dense with a physical energy that a teenager had no business producing. He kept this work for the rest of his life, which for an artist who destroyed and abandoned work constantly is itself a statement. Casa Buonarroti, the family home turned museum a short walk from Santa Croce, holds it in a room you can frequently have entirely to yourself. The work was 17 years old in the hands that made it. That fact alone changes how you look at it. Number 6. The Laurentian Library Vestibule, San Lorenzo, Florence. Imagine commissioning the greatest sculptor alive to design your library and receiving something that breaks every rule of architecture you know. The vestibule Michelangelo produced has never stopped being disorienting. Columns recessed into walls, brackets supporting nothing, a staircase flowing down in 3 converging streams, engineered to feel unstable, even though it has stood for 5 centuries. He finished the design from Rome by letter after political turmoil forced him out of Florence. He never saw the completed staircase in person. Most visitors to San Lorenzo never find the library entrance at all. The ones who do tend to stand in the vestibule longer than they planned. Number 5. The Moses, San Pietro in Vincoli, Rome. Look at the top of his head. Those are horns. When St. Jerome translated the Hebrew Bible into Latin, he rendered the word for rays of light as horned. For over 1,000 years, Western Christianity pictured Moses as horned based on a mistranslation. Michelangelo carved him that way anyway. San Pietro in Vincoli sits 5 minutes from the Colosseum and receives almost none of its traffic. The Moses anchors a papal tomb Michelangelo worked on for 40 years, a commission he later described as the great sorrow of his life. Freud wrote an entire essay arguing the figure captured the exact moment before Moses decided whether to act or hold himself back. The tension is real whether you accept that reading or not. Number 4. The Medici Chapel, San Lorenzo, Florence. In 1530, Florence fell back under Medici control. Michelangelo had sided against them and went into hiding, fearing for his life. The Medici Pope pardoned him on one condition: return to work. He came back and spent 4 more years on a funerary chapel, designing every element as a single unified work. Dawn and dusk on one side, day and night on the other. Then in 1534 he left for Rome and never returned. The floor sculptures were never carved, the wall tombs were never built. What exists is a fragment of something meant to be total, made by a man who built it under duress and never came back. It waits nearby with shorter lines and a history most visitors never hear. Number 3. The Deposition, Museo dell'Opera del Duomo, Florence. He carved it for his own tomb, then he smashed it. A flaw appeared in the marble, and the frustration became unbearable. He took a hammer to it. A student reassembled and partially finished it, and the difference between their hands is visible. You can see exactly where Michelangelo stopped and where someone else continued. The hooded figure at the top is widely believed to be a self-portrait, the face older and more specific than anything around it. Michelangelo spent years carving himself into the act of holding a dead Christ, destroyed it, and had it survive him anyway. This sculpture sits in a room you can stand in quietly for as long as you want, which is exactly what it requires. Number 2. The Conversion of Saul, Pauline Chapel, Vatican. By the time Michelangelo painted this, he was nearly 70 and privately in crisis. He had become involved with a reform movement the church would later condemn as close to heresy. And his letters from this period are full of doubt and grief. Saul has fallen from his horse, blinded, arms thrown wide. Soldiers scatter, a horse rears. Christ drives down from the upper corner while everything below him fragments outward. This is not the triumphant conversion of traditional iconography. It is collapse, blindness, and the violent interruption of a life. These are the last large-scale works Michelangelo ever completed, painted while he was questioning the faith that shaped everything he made. Number 1. The Rondanini Pieta, Castello Sforzesco, Milan. 3 days before he died, Michelangelo was working on this. He was 88 years old. The figures are elongated, almost medieval, barely separated from the block. He had cut away an earlier version he had already substantially completed because he wanted something different, something he could not name, precisely enough to stop changing. The detached arm of that abandoned version still hangs beside the composition, a ghost of the earlier idea left attached to the stone. 60 years earlier, he had carved the same subject, the Virgin holding the body of Christ, and resolved it so completely it made him famous across Europe. Here he was back inside it, dismantling his own solutions. He died on February 18th, 1564, and his body was smuggled out of Rome and taken back to Florence, buried at Santa Croce as he had wanted. The Rondanini was left unfinished in his studio. Go slowly when you get there. You are looking at the last thing his hands touched. Those are 10 Michelangelo works most visitors never find. If you want to go deeper on Renaissance Italy, the next video is right there. Hit like, it helps more people find these places, subscribe for more history-driven travel, and until next time, keep roaming.